Good morning. Welcome to this panel on reframing visual journalism in the age of synthetic media. My name's David Campbell. I'm Education Director at the VII Foundation, where our mission is to transform visual journalism by empowering new voices and creating stories that advocate change. The premise of this panel is threefold. First, we think that the increasing availability and power of generative AI has sharpened our focus on the issue of synthetic media. Second, that focus has increased the attention on the role of visuals in journalism. And third, this has actually revealed that visual journalists are not often at the table where the debates about synthetic media are taking place. In fact, we contend that most discussions about the future of journalism have given little explicit attention to the place and purpose of visuals, especially photojournalism. In the age of synthetic media, with the proliferation of generative AI and its capacity to produce increasingly realistic photographs, we think that silence around visuals in these debates needs to be overcome. Our three speakers on this panel will discuss how and why visual journalism needs to be elevated in contemporary discussions. They're going to look at the danger that synthetic visual media poses to the power of images to document events and issues, and consider why generative AI is actually likely to increase media organizations' reliance on authenticated visual content. On the panel in the middle, we have Alessia Glaviano, the head of Global Photo Vogue, and she is responsible for managing photography across the 27 editions of Vogue. Next to me is Jumana El-Zankouri, the executive director of the World Press Photo Foundation, and at the far end, Arthur Grémontpont, head of AI and Global Challenges Desk for Reporters Sans Frontières. Alessia and Jumana are going to give presentations, 10 minutes each, and then I'll pose some questions to Arthur, and our aim is to leave time for audience Q&A at the end. Alessia.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thanks, Perugia, for having us. I have to say I'm really shocked by how great this festival is. And I think there should be more space for photojournalism, because photojournalism is journalism. So in a festival that is dedicated to journalism, it's good and important that we're here. So I'm going to try and be brief, although it's not like I'm not very good at it, at being brief, but we first have to make a distinction. Photography, it's a medium. It can be used to do many different things. And generative AI, it's of course should be treated differently. We're talking about art, fashion, or in this case, journalism. Now, of course, it is a real threat. It poses a real threat for journalism and photojournalism, because photography and photojournalism is supposed to be a document. So there has to be a adherence to reality. And what does it mean when this thing doesn't exist anymore, when you can create an image just sitting, on the couch in your living room and saying that you're reporting from Gaza? This could be a really, really big danger for media authenticity. Now, I'm going to just show you some works, just because I wanted to be simple. I don't know how much you know about where we're at with generative AI and image making, and I have to say I was quite shocked by the reaction of the audience to the Kate Middleton picture that was modified on social media. I was shocked because I thought that people would acknowledge more how everything today is a bit fake, like all the filters on Instagram. So I was even positively shocked by the idea that people still believe in photography as a document. Like, they were like, no, it's this retouched. Oh my God, So can you imagine, like, what does it mean with all the media that we consume and all the photographs that we see every day if we start to question everything that we see? So the first project is by Jonas Bendixen, the Book of Veils, which is a very clever work that he has done, and maybe he won also the WordPress photo with this. And he's a documentary photographer. So, and it was very clever because when he released this body of work, which was on this town, which is known for producing fake news, you know, it was praised and you know, the work was incredible, blah, blah, blah. And after, he actually said that it was fabricated. So the people that we see in it are actually 3D models, he used AI. So I think it's very interesting, and he did so, and this was 2022 before, if you want, the release of generative AI into, like, everyone can use it now already in our phones also, right? So he wanted to stir up a debate on media authenticity and what does it mean. And this is, I think, what clever minds should be doing. And then I would like to mention Michael Christopher Brown, which is a photojournalist that I deeply admired. I think it's important to see how to also put this in perspective. This work that I'm gonna show you, that it's called 90 Miles, and it's from 2023. I think, I mean, I would suggest that you look at these images like really well, because this was, of course, he used Midjourney, and was the beginning of Midjourney, okay? Because there are two main apps to produce images with AI. One is Midjourney, and the other one is DALL-E. And this was a bit of the beginning of Midjourney. And you can see this is all done with AI, okay? And I think, I mean, I praise Michael for this. He's been harshly criticized, and I think wrongly, because I believe there's someone who has always taken the advancement in technology into question. It's Michael. He also published an incredible book on the war in Libya, all shot with iPhone. And I think, you know, it is important that these incredible, talented photojournalists are trying to question in the new media, the new technology, and see what we can do with it, you know? So this is another work that I wanted to show you, and this is already old. We're talking about 2023, but this is old. Like now, what Midjourney can do, what this app can do, they fool me. Like in the beginning, you know, I ran a platform that's PhotoVogue, which is open to everyone to upload images every Monday, and I receive 16,000 images every Monday. And I have to say, yes, and I have to say, in the beginning, I was like, I can see, you know, this aesthetic, and I said, oh, but this is AI. And then now today, so, I mean, if you want to fool me, you can, which is very, very strange. No one can fool me, but yes. So then, you know, before leaving, I wanted to show you this, and maybe I'll run the video and we talk about it afterwards. We can have also the audio, please.
I witnessed a man burning himself to death.
I had a very young baby. He was witness with the suicide. He was witness with everyone screaming. He was witness with everyone fighting.
He put his hand over my mouth. He then raped me.
I was worried some things will happen. I live in fear of violence and abuse. I came by boat because my country was so dangerous for me. I just want to be able to live my life.
Photojournalism is so raw and visceral. The heart of this project is making sure that these witness statements are honoured and have the impact that they deserve.
So I wanted to finish my 10 minutes. I hope I'm within the minutes. That he's already looking at me like.
It's fine. Carry on.
Okay, so
1 minute.
with some hope. There are maybe opportunities there, right? Like in this particular case, there are things that we cannot document, and we do know how, even from a neurological point of view, because of mirrors, neurons, how images and photographs can actually activate empathy in the viewers, right? So what does it mean if I can't go somewhere to document? And maybe, you know, like in this case, this incredible law firm, Australians, they worked together with refugees and AI technicians to produce photographs that were the most accurate possible to actually show what the refugees have been through. So I don't know, I mean, I just want to leave it like an open question, just raising the dangers of it, which are paramount, and also maybe thinking how important transparency is, so to really say what we do and what we use to produce images, and also how trust, I think, has become such an incredible, powerful thing today. Is like, how can I trust this or that individual, this or that organization? And yes, I mean, so that's how I wanted to leave you. Thank you.
Alessia, thank you.
Thank you.
Jumana.
Thanks so much, Alessia. Can you put the PowerPoint for me? Okay. So, for almost 70 years, World Press Photo has organized the most prestigious contests in photojournalism, presenting the best press and documentary photography, reaching millions of people all over the world. What we do, what we strive for, is to honor photojournalists who take risks to capture an important reality as they see it. Today, we at World Press Photo have a treasure in our hands. Not a treasure filled with gold, unfortunately. By the way, we're always looking for funders, so if anyone is interested, please reach out to me directly after this. But one that is filled with images, retracing important moments in mankind's 70-year history, our archive. Through this archive, we learn many things. We learn how history keeps on repeating itself. We learn how stereotypes are created. We learn what is acceptable or not in our society and how this has shifted. And we learn how photojournalism has had an important impact on our world and how it has developed, changed, and adapted with technology, lack of access, and so much more. Visual journalism, if you can put the link here, or should I put it myself? Thank you. Here you see a work by Josh Bagley of every front page of the New York Times from 1852. I'll leave you to it a bit, and you'll see the shifts that photojournalism has gone through since. Visual journalism has had a profound impact on shaping journalism overall. Today, you pick up any newspaper or open any news website, and you'll notice the importance of visuals. They're usually the first thing that readers see. Yeah, it's kind of cool, huh? We have always lived in a visual world. What has changed throughout history are the techniques used to make visuals and how they're used in the journalism context. By looking through our archives since 1955, we can trace the technological developments. This is 1955. This image is by Morgan van Houten and was the first photograph that was awarded during in the World Press Photo Contest. This one on the left is the first color photo that won World Press Photo in 1967. Then in the early 2000s, digital cameras started dominating the market. And in 2015, on the right, this is the work by Malin Fizehai, and won third prize in the daily life category for photograph taken on a camera phone. And in recent years, photography has been revolutionized by the rise of the camera phone, the internet, and social media. We can also trace the cultural impact of photojournalism. This iconic photo by Douglas Martin, awarded in 1957 by World Press Photo, opened people's eyes to racial injustice when speaking about race was unheard of. Or these images from the Vietnam War marked a change in the way wars were documented. Photographs told a story as it occurred. Today, photojournalism is facing many challenges, and I would like to focus on two: making ethical images and AI. Since I started as executive director of World Press Photo about 3 years ago, there are two statements about photography and photojournalism that have been repeated to me more times than I wish to remember. First one is an image is always objective, and the second one is an image is worth 1,000 words. It drives me crazy every time someone tells you that. And I can't tell you how far away from reality these two statements are, especially in today's world. A world defined by its polarization, fake news, information bubbles, intense pressure on press freedom, and lack of easy access to trustworthy, fact-checked information. What people somehow fail to remember is that behind each lens is an actual person with their own lived experience, their own biases, their own cultural background. It is as if having a lens between the photographer and the event or the subject that they are photographing filters away all of those biases and depicts the reality. But as we know today, more than ever, this is not the case. Who is behind the lens is essential to the photography that will be taken, because it's not enough to take an image. We have finally agreed that it is essential to take it in an ethical manner, a context-sensitive manner, that having a photographer who understands and respects the context that they are photographing is an essential part that they are taking and will actually define it. But what people also somehow fail to remember is that you need to know how to read an image in order to truly understand it. Yes, there's a universality in images, of course, one that defies languages, but a same image can be read very differently from one person to the next. And in such a fast-paced world and polarized world that we live in, where images are consumed in under 3/4 of a second and reacted to in just as much time and with so much emotion, they need to be accompanied by words in order to help explain them. You're going to see now some of the images that won World Press in 2024. This image is a beautiful image, but you would look at it totally differently if you knew that it depicts a grandson with a grandfather with his grandson, and they're standing where the grandfather used to stand, which was the shoreline when he was the same age as his grandson in the Fiji Islands. It's not an exaggeration to say that we live in perilous times. How am I on time now? Good. It's not just the suffering in regional wars that threaten to escalate, or domestic political conflicts that seem intractable, or even climate change that is increasingly more severe and destructive. Humankind has lived through it all. Believe me, as the director for an organization that has captured the history of the news for 69 years, I know. But why do these times seem more perilous, more desperate? For me, the answer lies in a new rigidity, a dominance of fixed ideas, a failure, even a refusal to understand others' perspectives. In some, a total lack of dialogue. And that touches directly on what I see as the central role of photojournalists and documentary photographers, to create better understanding that can foster dialogue and break through polarization. As a major and respected visual institution with a wide reach around the world, we usually reach over 2 billion people around the world, World Press Photo does not take this task lightly when giving a platform to the World Press Photo winning images and photographers. It is at the forefront of everything that we do. Placing the stories in context every year requires rigorous research and fact-checking, just what Alessia was saying. We're extremely mindful of the sensitivity of language and take great care with the wording of our captions and publications. In short, it comes down to trust. Since October 2023, the most difficult ongoing story for photojournalists is the Israel-Hamas war. Apart from the horrific humanitarian impact the war has had, this conflict also dramatically demonstrates the enormous pressure that photojournalism is under today. It has it all: huge obstacles to access, plus, for those journalists who are able to witness the war, mental anguish and the physical toll of being caught in deadly conflict. Today, it's really impossible for foreign journalists to enter Gaza and report on the situation. Palestinian journalists in Gaza trying to document what is happening can't escape risking their lives. As of 19th of April, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, 97 journalists and media workers were confirmed dead. 92 of them are Palestinians, 2 Israelis and 3 Lebanese. 16 journalists reported injured, 4 journalists reported missing, and 25 were imprisoned. For us, as an organization that advocates photojournalism and documentary photography, the toll of this conflict is devastating. Gaza has the world's attention today, but there are many other situations around the world where journalists are putting their lives in danger in order to bring out realities that otherwise would go unseen. World Press Photo believes it is essential to highlight legitimate stories produced by professionals who take risks to report the stories that matter. And precisely because of that, generative AI will not replace professional photojournalism. Generative AI cannot be a witness, not yet anyhow. That faces us and the photojournalists and documentary photographers that we work with the question of how, in the searing news moment, should we strive to be fair witnesses? Is it our role to show all sides of a situation? Is it our role to offer answers? Both are impossible tasks. What I do know is that visual journalism is not here to offer answers. What I do know is that balance is an elusive and sometimes misleading goal. As I said, each one of us comes with our own story, our own experience, our own biases. Each one of us sees reality differently. But at World Press Photo, we see that an impactful photo can open a closed mind. We know how personal stories can speak to universal experience. Perhaps we expect too much of images and visual images. Still, we hope that viewers can find the universal in the specific. And why? Because we believe that the universal can enable connection. So we can't offer solutions to these perilous times, but without a dialogue between competing realities, there will be no solution. Opening a space for that dialogue is the role of visual journalism, in my mind at least. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jemana. So Jemana's shown some of the strongest documentary images. Alessia has shown how also some people have been using generative AI to make images that document, inverted commas, some situations, indicating that the line is quite a difficult line to draw on this, depending on the purpose and what is done. And at Reporters Sans Frontières, with the Paris Charter on AI in media, there are a set of principles that have been established to try and guide the discussion, kind of guide the thinking about this. So I want to turn to Arthur and ask him, as the rapporteur for the Paris Charter, to what extent do you think that the emergence of generative AI is challenging the place of visuals in journalism?
And so my main personnel in visual journalism is sending holiday pictures to my grandmother. So I must say I'm a bit impressed by the panel here, but my true area of expertise lays at the intersection of AI and the information space. So during the first year following the public release of generative AI for the wide public, humanity has created a volume of synthetic images equivalent to the first 150 years of photography. I think it's something like 15 billion pictures in just 1 year. And in less than 2 years, generative AI tools have evolved from creating childlike drawings to HD videos. And we are now to the point where it's totally impossible to distinguish between an authentic and a synthetic content, at least when we are talking about pictures. So the first challenge for visual journalism is obviously to be able to robustly identify authentic content in a growing sea of synthetic content. But the second challenge is actually a lot harder. It is to maintain public trust, as it's been said. Publishing true, authentic content is not enough to maintain public trust. There is a famous quote from Hannah Arendt that says, if everybody always lies to you, the consequence is not that you believe the lies, but that nobody believes anything any longer. And this is particularly challenging for visual journalism. How do you maintain public trust when nobody can trust anything? And it's already the case that journalistic photographs are dismissed as deepfakes. And the third challenge is even harder, in my opinion at least. It is to catch people's attention with actual photographs. So you know that social media and search engines that are competing for our attention, they provide between 50% and 80% of their reach to most news outlets. So generally speaking, images are very good at catching people's attention, and this explains why images have recently gained such importance in news outlets. And every survey shows you that year after year, people read less and less, while pictures and videos keep humanity awake at night. 5 billion people spend an average 2.5 hours a day on social media, where they mostly consume content that are recommended to them by algorithms, their recommender systems. But these recommender systems only optimize for, or mainly optimize for one thing, which is catching people's attention. And by doing so, these systems are not amplifying truth, peace, or art. They are mainly designed to maximize ad revenues, and by doing so, they promote misleading, harmful, and sensationalist content. So the gatekeepers of information today basically mute quality journalism. Today, social media are engaged in a clone war, where text has nearly disappeared, and where videos win over still images. These platforms now look exactly the same. They look like 15 seconds vertical videos recommended by algorithms, like TikTok exactly. And the first reason that got me interested in AI and information is the widening gap between the reality of the ecological crisis and our collective understanding of it. And social media today keep widening this gap. So let me take an example. In 2020, Australia experienced the Black Summer. The country faced what scientists called mega fires, which killed billions of animals and resulted in a huge catastrophic ecological damage. And however, what captured the public's attention was seemed to be a photograph taken from space, which was posted by Rihanna on her Twitter account. And on the picture, you could see Australia in flames from the space, which is in fact impossible. And this image was shared with 100 million followers of Rihanna, and then it was then turbocharged and amplified by Twitter's algorithms, and it got more visibility than any scientific or journalistic content obviously more visibility than any WordPress photo, I guess, this year at least. So I think it's a real challenge for truth to compete with fake content on social media that try to only optimize for engagement. So we must bear in mind that generative AI and deepfakes are already a challenge, but the hardest part of it is that they're entering an information ecosystem that systematically rewards falseness and sensationalism at the expense of true quality reporting. So I think this is the biggest challenge for visual journalism.
Thanks, Arthur. So we've got a couple of minutes before I come to the audience and invite you to ask some questions of any of the panelists. But Arthur, one more question for you. The most difficult question, of course. If you had to think of one or two things that the visual community should do to address the challenges of synthetic media, specifically related to visuals, what would you be recommending, or what from your discussions around the Paris Charter do you think would be recommended for the visual community to do?
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about what's included into the Paris Charter, which is a bit more important than what I think personally. So the Paris Charter on AI and journalism was published by Reporters Without Borders, RSF, and 16 partner international organizations. I can see friends who helped us draft the charter here. So these organizations included, for instance, CPJ, the Deutsche Welle Academy, GFMD, the International Press Institute, the Pulitzer Center, Thomson Foundation, the European Federation of Journalists. So many famous international organizations protecting press freedom, media, the diversity of media. This charter was written by an experts committee of 32 international experts. It was chaired by Nobel Prize winner Maria Ressa. Maybe you've met with her yesterday. She was around us. And this charter establishes the first global ethical framework for journalism in the AI era. It outlines 10 key principles for using AI in newsrooms and for guiding interaction with AI providers. So there are several principles in this charter that specifically address visual journalism. The first, it mandates absolute transparency in AI usage. This is kind of obvious, but it is far from enough. AI-generated images, because they're so realistic, they have the potential to mislead the public, even when they are labeled as such. They have a profound effect on what we believe is true. So mixing them with news is probably not a good idea. So this is why the Charter demands that the media always favor the use of authentic footage and recordings to depict actual events. And the last thing that the Charter asks relating to visual journalism is that it pushes for broadly adopting state-of-the-art authenticity standards. And I know that David knows a great deal about them. So currently, social media have pledged, what social media have pledged to do is to label synthetic content. But we actually think we should do the opposite. We need to reverse the burden of the proof, and we need to ask journalists and media outlets to label their contents to prove it is true in a sea of synthetic content. So these are the main advice that are contained in the Paris Charter on AI and journalism.
Great. Thank you very much, Arthur. Questions from the audience? If you would like to ask a question to any of the panelists, who would like to go first? There are microphones on the side. People will come to you.
Hi, this is Ivela from the Democracy and Media Foundation. I would like to know your thoughts on the financial consequences for photographs and photographers, because I feel like it can mean that a lot of people either need to change their profession or need to sell in a different way. So I'd like to know more about the consequences.
Alessia, would you like a stab at that?
Yes, thank you for this question. You know, I think, and then, you know, if you've heard what the panelists here said, I don't think that AI can ever replace the witnessing photography, okay? So when we're talking about photojournalism, that can't be replaced, and it shouldn't be, and I hope it will not, you know, and if you're a serious organization, you're still gonna send people, and you wanna see things, you know, real photographs. You don't wanna see illustrations. So, no, I don't think that is gonna happen. I do believe that unfortunately a lot of people are gonna lose their jobs, but not in photojournalism. I fear more for the artistic parts and all of those jobs involving photography. There are more like lookbooks or things, you know, like in fashion, but not the campaigns. Yeah, I mean, I fear a lot for that, I do.
Alessia, just to follow up on that, you straddle both the artistic and the documentary.
Yes.
Are you seeing generative AI images being used increasingly on the fashion side, on the artistic side?
I have to say, like, for instance, in Condé Nast, we have very strict guidelines. We do not publish AI. We did some experiments just to exactly frame the issue and show that AI was there, but we are not, I mean, we're really active into trying to be most ethical, and I do see brands doing it, and I do see the reactions from the communities, which are really harsh, and I'm happy about that. Mm-hmm. So I believe, I don't know, you know, in the beginning of AI, like brands were like, look, we did this with AI, amazing, and the models are not real, yeah. And, you know, and they got, of course, and people were like shocked, like, that this is not good, you know. You're using fake models. Like yesterday, someone sent me a link of a contest, a beauty contest for AI models. Which is, I'm sorry, I mean, it's like, what is it, a joke? It's like The Onion. But yeah, I mean, so I hope that the fact that the community is really against this idea of replacing real bodies, real people. So there are, I could even show you some incredible things that I have seen, just to give you an idea of, like, this is AI, right? And this is, we're talking about fashion, no? Or art. Of course, it's different. It's not, okay, I'm sorry, but this is AI. They're beautiful, no?
They're just not real.
They're just not real. And this was the beginning of AI. This is Brian Huhn is so talented. That's Hunter Schaffer. I mean, this is a mix between photography and AI. So the things that could be done are really incredible and endless. And there are a lot of people, like for instance in this case, who are using AI to somehow overcome all the biases and all the issues of representation that historically we had through photography. There are a lot of what we could call noble uses, but do we think that these noble uses actually make up for all the bad that comes to it? I don't know. You know, it's like, it's a question.
Question here at the front.
Thanks so much for the panel. I'm curious if you could maybe speak to guidelines, policies that news organizations should be thinking about with respect to synthetic imagery, use of these tools for illustration, labeling, policies, et cetera, et cetera.
Shimana, do you want to respond to that, particularly in terms of the contest, how you handle entries, because that would be like a news organization receiving images, and how you handle verification and certification of images?
Yeah, you could also answer that, David. We invest quite a lot in terms of forensic expertise. So we have forensic experts who check every image for manipulations. On the one hand, every time there's a manipulation, even if it's just a tiny one, we take it out. Because trust is really of the utmost importance. And then there's another thing, which is toning, basically. And toning there, it's a gray area, because toning can be done just to make the image better, but toning can be done to such an extent that it totally changes the way that you react emotionally to it. And there it goes way too far in our view. But it's always so subjective, of course. So that's one thing that we make sure that we only have authentic images. And then we have another part of it, which is caption writing. And I think caption writing is just as important. So the way that we work at World Press is we receive, of course, the captions from the photographers, but then we don't totally depend on them. And what we do is we take that as a starting point, and then we have our own researchers who go out and who research and who rewrite the caption, actually, in order to make it as true and as fact-checked as possible. What we have also done is when there was the whole AI that started, we came together with a bunch of other agencies, so Magnum, Geo, lots of other people, and we started we did a statement actually of principles. And one of them, which is what you just mentioned, which is what Arthur just mentioned, is actually labeling when it's not real images. Do you want to add something, Arthur?
So should all news organizations invest in forensic experts? Is that your advice?
I definitely think so.
How much do those cost?
Quite a lot. But it's really important. I think today we're in a world where people question so much. So last year, the winner of the year was Evgeny Maloletka's image of the woman who was pregnant in Mariupol on this the sheet with the And the only question that I got from all newspapers and art and interviews was, so is this image real, actually? Because there was so much, trolls and everything beforehand. And that was the first, and because now it's one World Press photo, so it's a real image. I'm like, yeah. So yes, unfortunately, this is the world we live in today.
If I may add something, it's like I did a symposium, a 3-day symposium on AI for my last festival. Everything is online, so if you go AI, Photovogue Fest, it's free online. And we had 2 days dedicated to photojournalism and all the questions that it raises. And we had engineers, we had, the thing is also there isn't and there might never will be a way to detect if images are made with AI, okay? So that's why I think it's very true and interesting what he's saying. It's like we should look at the other way around, like labeling things that we could say that this is real, This is real. And again, the trust issue. Because even if you get the forensic thing, if someone wants to fool you with AI, they could.
Yeah, but this year, for example, so the photo of the year was the one of Organised. We had a lot of images coming from Organised this year. And what we asked for was not only the raw images and the raw files in order to check the forensics, but also the whole sequence of. Yeah, right. So we were also actually fact-checking even more because of the polarization that this is so intensely going to come to us. So there definitely is, unfortunately today, a burden of proof that we need to bring out as authentic images, basically.
I think also to add the point that Arthur made about reversing things so that what is marked is the authentic image rather than the synthetic image is the important thing. There are lots of initiatives, technical and otherwise, to mark authentic images. So the Content Authenticity Initiative, the C2PA standard, other blockchain technologies, etc., are marking these images at the point of creation so that media organizations can trust them. In the end, though, like the verification techniques and so on, while users and viewers may be able to see those sorts of things, all these images are still going to be questioned, because now the second order of disinformation is to allege that something real is actually AI generated, also flipping the thing around. So content credentials don't secure you against that, but they give you the first line of defense for that, and I think that's going to be essential. Other questions? Over here? Microphone? Just need a microphone, particularly against the bell.
Okay, so I guess like the three sort of obvious questions newsrooms, visual journalists should be asking themselves are whether we should be using generative AI, how to use it ethically, and how it should be regulated. Are there any other questions that you think we, as visual journalists or newsrooms or educators, as I am, should be asking ourselves?
I'm not sure if I heard your question properly. Can you say it again? The last part of it, please.
So what discussions would you like, what kind of questions would you like newsrooms and visual journalists to be discussing, to be asking ourselves? You know, whether we should use it is one question. How to use, if we are going to use it, how to use it ethically, how it should be regulated. What are the kind of questions do you think we should be exploring?
So some newsrooms have taken the view that it was somewhat okay to publish AI content once it was labeled as such. And we think the committee that has written the charter actually thinks it's a wrong way to do so. There is an historical anecdote I came across recently that struck me. At the beginning of visual journalism, so obviously photography was a game changer for journalism. But at some point, journalists realized that they were able to use photography to stage actual scenes and to pay actors and to recreate events. And they labeled these photographs as staged. But still, the public felt deceived, even when it was transparently displayed as such. So I think that when it's becoming easier and easier to fake reality, the value of authenticity actually increases. And I really think that it's not the right move ethically, but also in terms of economics for journalism to use and to mix AI-generated content with what we can call journalism. For instance, you may have come across this report from Channel 1, which drew a lot of attention, and there were some AI-generated anchors presenting the news. And obviously today, this looks like fancy and disruptive, but in a few months or years from now, YouTube is going to be replete with this kind of content. So actual true faces will be even more rare than this kind of content. So the true value of journalism obviously stands in reality, not at all in generative AI technologies, I think.
There's one thing that I wanted to say that James Estrin, who's a staff photographer at the New York Times, dear friend and great human being, once told me that I think it's super nice. We do know, and you said it very well before, that there is no reality, there is no objectivity, there is no, but, you know, still journalism and photojournalism should be trying to tell the truth, right? And you use this very poetic image of the idea of having something into, how do you say virgolette in English, into, it's like a quotation from reality, a picture, no? So you do not, when you write, your journalists, when you quote someone, you put it, and it means you're not changing any words, even if you could say it in a better way, you don't, because you're quoting. Putting those two things means this is exactly what that person say. So the picture is like a quotation from reality, and nothing should be changed there, I think. No?
I think also you shouldn't underestimate, so what I tried to showcase is how people read images and the very small amount of time that people take to read images, actually. And in that way, I think, just like World Press Photo, but the New York Times, The Guardian, people expect when they go there that they are looking at real images. And I think that trust is very important to keep, at least for now. Because it's a change and it's a development. And as you've seen in the video, things just kind of, develop. So, yeah.
So we have come to the end of our time. Please thank the panel, and we hope to be having more of these discussions in the future.